I'm back on Budby South Forest again today in search of the year's first oil beetle. Beautiful day today. When that sun's out, it's pleasantly warm, and yesterday was absolutely glorious, if not a tad windy, but very mild, and many people will have seen the first butterflies yesterday. I certainly did, with red apple and brimstone butterfly at home. But today it's oil beetle. I'm convinced there will be at least one out now, because conditions have been relatively mild, and especially mild the last couple of days. So same plan as in the last oil beetle video, to try the two banks over to my left first, and then I'll wander around the paths. Hopefully it's not too breezy in the more exposed areas, and we can find our quarry. Well, I've lost the sun at the moment. A lot of cumulus cloud today, but when that sun comes out, it's absolutely beautiful, and it's going to be ideal conditions on the south facing banks here. It's just perfect. There has to be one out today. Here we are. In fact, there's two. Well, I've hardly walked more than a couple of yards, and two oil beetles on this bank. There's this one here, which, going by the kinked antenna, is a male. I can't see the other one yet, and I want to try and get some footage first, and hopefully we can get this one clear of any vegetation in front of it. The sun has just come out again, and the other individual looks slightly larger than this one, and I think both have been out for a couple of days, judging by the size of the abdomen. This, of course, is the so-called black oil beetle, Meloe proscarabeus, a quite astounding species of beetle, one we're incredibly fortunate enough to have in the county, and one which appeared very suddenly out of nowhere for the first time in over a century a number of years ago. One of the joys of looking for oil beetles this time of year on Budby is the accompanying sound. The beautiful song of the woodlark, which nests here, several pairs now. But this one is playing ball. Sometimes they won't stop walking. Absolutely astounding things. And of course, when they first emerge from their overwintering burrows, they are indeed small. At least the abdomen is small. But the abdomen of females becomes absolutely enormous. There are, of course, obviously different sized specimens anyway, but some females can attain lengths of nearly 2 inches, and the abdomen is full of eggs. They're all pretty much almost constantly grazing and then laying eggs. It is a most remarkable beetle. And that's quite a remarkable song, the song of the woodlark. They're beautifully coloured as well. Although called black oil beetle, they're anything but black, to be honest. Especially when fresh like this, there's that metallic element to the coloration, noticeably blues and violets. They're quite beautiful beetles. This one has been the most cooperative oil beetles I've ever filmed, to be honest. And the other one is sat equally as still, enjoying this morning sun. But you get an idea of the antenna on this male. You can see how midway in the antenna the sections become enlarged, and that's where the kink is. It's a very obvious kink in the antenna of males. They're very easy to sex, and that one's been disturbed by that small fly, no doubt. Well, already a mating pair, and these two here are just 2 of 4, of which there's another one just in the upper right hand part of the screen, and just further over to the left of the screen there's a very small one which you might not be able to see, but I'm surprised it's the female that's leading the male here. The male is the one now on his back, and the female is the one that's turning to the left. You may well be able to see the difference in antennas now. Male on the right obviously has that kink in its antenna, also some larger segments of the antenna, and they seem to have stopped. Now these two are considerably larger than the other 4, so now on to a total of 6. 2 on that first bank and then 4 here. It's amazing how large these get from being very small in some specimens at time, and I can tell you that the other 2 that are alongside or in the vicinity of this mating pair are also both males, so we have 5 males and 1 female. And these 2 that we're looking at now have obviously been out, I would say, probably a week. I wouldn't be at all surprised. I don't think I was that early in looking for these on the 2nd of February. I think after we've had the snow, these have come out as soon as it's got mild. Cracking view despite the bits of grass, but you can see that face of the male on the right of the 2. Another one's just to the right of these is starting to get active, and these 2 are thankfully settled. They are very strange looking beetles. A lot of people might not even think that these were beetles, because the elytra, which are the wing cases, doesn't cover the abdomen, and as the females become enlarged with eggs, that abdomen isn't covered anywhere near enough by the elytra, and they don't fly. They rely totally on hitching a lift as a young larva on the back or legs of any kind of bee and being taken and moved that way. Fascinating life cycle. The eggs are laid by burrows which the females make. The burrows are about the same depth as the female, and she'll lay up to 1,000 eggs. The eggs are orange in this burrow, then the triangulids emerge, and they're very strange looking things, and they're orangey yellow, and they emerge and then wait, usually on a flower, or I think a lot walk around actively, and they wait usually on a flower for a solitary bee to come along. They hitch a lift on that bee, get taken back to that bee's own burrow, and there they grow and feed on the developing brood and presumably the nectar left by that solitary bee. They're obviously fully formed probably by autumn, late autumn, and then are just dormant and waiting to emerge on the first warm day of February. What super beetles these are. And we're on the move again. These females certainly drag the males about. Time for a wander around, see if we can count any more. The current total is 6, 5 males, 1 female. And we'll leave these 2 to get on with whatever it is they're getting on with. Well, there's another 3 here, which takes us up to 9. And this lower one here is a female. And this is a larger male. There's another male at the back, so we've now got 2 females and 7 males. I tell a lie. We've got another one, another male, so we've got 8 males and 2 females. This is the most there's ever been on this earlier date. It's not the earliest date. The earliest date I think is the 15th of February, and that was set last year, but this is certainly a joint equal earliest date. They're all brought out by the very mild weather that we've experienced this last couple of days. And what's good about these today especially is that they are confiding. Quite often, if you so much as move the vegetation that they're standing on, they're off. I say they can't fly, but they quite often walk and walk and walk. But that face is just fabulous. And there you really do get a good look at the kinked nature of that male antenna. And there's the female. You can see the difference in the female antenna. Bent, yes, but not kinked like the male in the background. These are the beetles that behave like no other, really. No other beetle that I've seen. They are very, very different in, obviously, in appearance, but also in manner, how they move. And they will graze openly on grasses such as bents. They tend to not bother with fine grasses like fescues. It's usually bents and other grasses that they can get. They're a bit restricted here on Budby with it being heathland, but the female is off now. Off she goes. You see, it's just how they stand and the posture about them. I know this male is partially hidden. The female's gone wandering off, but this male, it's gone cloudy at the moment. But they almost remind me of cattle in a way, the head movements, but it's just very unbeetle-like. They really are wonderful beetles. And this is one of just 2 sites of oil beetle in Nottinghamshire. Both appeared at around about the same time. And the other site is Newstead Abbey. And that one's going off for a wander. But what views we've had of this wonderful beetle here today. And here's our 11th. and a small specimen too, if I can skillfully and smoothly bring that around. Now that's a photo that I want, even with a still camera. It's not very often they do this, and this looks to be a female, but it's very small, former grubby fingernail time. And that fingernail is an inch at the back of this one. So this one, from front of head to the back, is 17 mil. It's not very big by oil beetle standards, and there is something I can use as a measure here. If you that's a 7-spot ladybird, and that's as good an indication of the size of this one. This is small, but you now have something to scale apart from my former grubby fingernail. You can never have enough photos if I'm careful. There's always an annoying blade of grass in front, and some big bloke's shadow, which doesn't help. I've lost the sun again. It's been rather elusive, lovely when it comes out, but then it does drop cool, and the oil beetles that are on this bank in here tend to stop eating or doing whatever it is that they're doing. And so what I'm going to do now is walk around the usual area and check the usual path and see if we could turn up any more. I'll just come no further than another 30 or 40 yards. There's another scraped area here, and on the southern side of this spoil there are another 2 oil beetles so far, and this one's a female who's now off for a wander, and a good size that one is. There's another 3 oil beetles on this other area of banked up spoil, all on the southern side, which you would expect because the southern side becomes warm in the sun, and oil beetles do like to warm up. They'll spend a lot of time just sat there warming up in the sun. But 2 small ones and 1 quite large, so we're up to 14 now, of which 3 are females. So we're doing brilliantly well. But now it's more to the open part of the heath and to check the paths, but we may not be so fortunate on those paths. But if you want to see oil beetles, look for this kind of habitat, and they are easy to spot, even the smaller ones. I didn't think I'd get a count of 14 on this earlier date. Used to be good for oil beetles, on the side of the fence there. But although there are reports of oil beetles from pretty much most of Budby, this has to be the most regular and populated site. But even this area, in my opinion, has changed considerably, because the main population used to be on the track that runs down here to where the 2 groups of trees meet either side of the track, but then they started to be found further down that way. They have continued and are now found as far as you can see along there, but not in this section of track. This section of track has changed over the years. It's grassed over, and it's become less gravelly, and so the females can't dig into it. In a way, it's good that areas of Budby have been scraped, at least the areas just over there where I found today's oil beetles. That's the best spot on Budby for oil beetles by far, certainly that I know of. So, although the beetle is now found generally all over Budby South Forest, it is still, for me, largely concentrated in that one particular spot where the 3 banks are. Over here, we used to get a lot beetles coming through the fence and continuing into there, but there was a lot more heather then, and where there weren't stands of heather and it was just grass, they were great places for oil beetles. All in all though, it's certainly holding its own here, and I will be back in a few weeks' time and see what kind of count a survey can reveal of one of Nottinghamshire's most characteristic species, the fabulous oil beetle.